They say the most dangerous revenge is not the one that explodes in public. It is the one that arrives in silence, without warning, without begging for attention, without needing to explain itself to anyone. It does not scream. It does not chase. It simply waits, and then changes everything. And that is exactly what makes Caitlin Clark's story so powerful, so unsettling, and so unforgettable. Because this was never just about basketball. This was never just about points, logos, highlights, records, trophies, sold-out arenas, or $1 million offer that most people on Earth would have grabbed without blinking. No. This was about something far bigger. This was about power. About disrespect. About memory. About the kind of dismissal that powerful people think nobody notices, until the person they underestimated grows so big that the entire system they built starts shaking under their feet. And that is where this story becomes ruthless. Because long before Caitlin Clark became the center of the sports universe, long before she became the face that forced television networks to stop treating women's basketball like an afterthought, long before she became the player who could move ratings, ticket sales, jersey sales, public conversation, media narratives, and even the financial direction of the sport with a single appearance, she was just a young phenom from Iowa with outrageous range, impossible confidence, and a level of court vision that should have made every elite program in America panic. But one of the most powerful figures in the entire sport didn't panic. He didn't lean in. He didn't lock in. He didn't make the call. And that silence would become one of the most expensive mistakes women's basketball has ever seen. Because when Caitlin Clark was still a teenager, still just a rising name with a lethal jumper and the kind of offensive imagination coaches spend decades hoping to discover. Once in a lifetime, the dream for so many girls in her position was obvious: UConn. That wasn't just a school. It was a throne. It was the symbol. The dynasty. The machine. The destination where greatness was not just expected, it was manufactured. A place where legends had already walked, where banners did the talking before the players even touched the floor. For years, if you were the best of the best, UConn was supposed to come get you. It was supposed to know. It was supposed to recognize the future before the future had fully arrived. And yet when the time came for Caitlin Clark, the recognition never truly came. The urgency never came. The respect never came. The door that should have flown open for a generational talent stayed strangely, arrogantly, carelessly half-closed. Contact was light. Interest felt casual. The energy was cold. And the biggest part of all? The call from the man who represented the standard never happened. He never called her directly. He never made her feel like she mattered. He never treated her like the type of player who could change a program, change a conference, change a sport. Instead, she was treated like someone who should have chased the opportunity herself, like someone who should have felt honored enough to pursue a system that wasn't even sure it wanted her. And that right there is where the wound formed. Because athletes remember disrespect differently. The truly elite ones do not forget the rooms that got quiet when they walked in. They do not forget the hands that didn't reach back. They do not forget the people who acted like they were optional. They store it. They lock it away. They turn it into edge, into hunger, into fire that never fully goes out. So while one side looked at the situation like a minor recruiting decision, Caitlin Clark lived it like a message. A message that said, "You are not our chosen one. You are not the star we're building around. You are not the future we're investing in." And sometimes the most catastrophic thing you can do to a once-in-a-generation competitor is make them feel overlooked before they become unavoidable. Because once that happens, every shot becomes personal. Every win becomes louder. Every record becomes a reminder. Every sold-out arena becomes evidence. And that is exactly what happened next. Caitlin Clark didn't go where the history already lived. She went where she could build her own. She chose Iowa, and in that choice was the first real crack in the old power structure. Because Iowa didn't come with the same mythology. It didn't carry the same aura. It didn't have the same dynasty sheen or decades of built-in prestige. To the casual eye, it looked like the less glamorous option. To people stuck in old basketball hierarchies, it looked like a detour. Maybe even a consolation prize. But what those people failed to understand is that freedom is often more dangerous than tradition. At Iowa, Caitlin Clark didn't have to squeeze herself into somebody else's empire. She didn't have to dim her instincts to fit an old blueprint. She didn't have to ask for permission to be extraordinary. She was given room, trust, space, the ball, the green light. The system bent toward her instead of forcing her to bend toward it. And that changed everything. Because when you give a generational player freedom instead of control, expression instead of restriction, confidence instead of caution, you don't just unlock talent, you unleash something that can rewrite the entire culture of a sport. And that is what the world watched happen in real time. It started with whispers. Then clips. Then social media clips that spread like wildfire before games were even over. Then came the logo threes. The impossible passes. The fearless pull-ups. The audacity. The swagger. The sense that every possession could turn into something historic. She wasn't just putting up points. She was creating moments. She wasn't just dominating games. She was changing what women's basketball looked like to people who had never cared before. And that is what made her rise different. It wasn't just that she was great. It was that she was magnetic. She made people stop scrolling. She made casual fans care. She made fathers, daughters, old-school hoopheads, non-sports fans, media personalities, celebrities, and first-time viewers all feel like they had to tune in or risk missing something they'd regret. That kind of pull cannot be taught. It cannot be systemized. It cannot be manufactured by legacy alone. And with every season, with every explosion, with every arena she turned electric, the mistake grew bigger. What once looked like a recruiting oversight slowly transformed into a full-blown historical misread. Because while old gatekeepers kept clinging to the idea that the machine would always matter more than the player, Caitlin Clark was proving the exact opposite. She was proving that one player, if powerful enough, charismatic enough, and undeniable enough, could reroute the entire attention economy of a sport. And the numbers backed it up so brutally that denial started looking ridiculous. She became a walking ratings engine. A ticket printing machine. A culture-shifting force. Iowa games didn't just become popular, they became events. Home games turned into impossible tickets. Road games became packed spectacles. Opposing arenas benefited from her presence like they were hosting a global attraction. Everywhere she went, the atmosphere changed. The energy changed. The demand changed. And suddenly, the old centers of power were no longer controlling the conversation. She was. That is what made this so threatening to the people who once held the keys. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just become successful. She became independent. And independent stars are the hardest ones to control. She didn't need a dynasty to validate her. She didn't need an old guard to crown her. She didn't need a legendary coach to stamp her greatness before the world believed it. She made the world believe it on her own. Shot by shot. Game by game. Record by record. And once she started smashing records, the entire thing became impossible to ignore. She wasn't just putting her name in history, she was blowing holes through the walls of it. She shattered scoring milestones. She climbed into conversations that were never supposed to include a player from Iowa. She transformed from elite to iconic in front of everyone's eyes. But the most devastating part for the people who once looked past her was this: the rise didn't look temporary. It didn't feel like hype.